Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We're going to step into one of the most intense, passionate sporting environments on Earth, but we're going to look at it through a really specific, completely impartial lens. Today, we're decoding the incredibly intense visual language of the Old Firm Rivalry. Get ready because we're looking way past the sport itself to understand the signs.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the stadium as a canvas, decode the Union Jack and the Irish Tricolour, explore the semiotic collision, and then wrap it all up with the unspoken language.
So Section 1, the stadium as a canvas.
To truly get what's happening here, we have to look past the 90 minutes of the match. The stadium completely transforms. It's no longer just a place of sport. It becomes this massive canvas of competing national identities, deeply etched in fabric and hoisted high into the air. And when these flags face off across the pitch, they aren't just decorating the stands to look pretty. They're performing a high-stakes war where every single square inch of imagery is a signal and a manifesto.
To analyze this properly, we need the right tool. And that tool is semiotics. Semiotics is basically the science of signs and symbols. Now, I want to be incredibly clear right off the bat here. This is a study of semiotics, not a study of politics. We're acting as totally neutral scientists today, just observing how human beings use visual tools to communicate incredibly deep meanings to one another.
In this highly charged semiotic ecosystem, a flag is far more than dyed cloth. It acts as a visual shorthand for entire world views. Think about it. Hoisting a flag is the ultimate identifier for the participants. In a theater of tens of thousands of people, making sure your worldview is explicitly seen is the primary act of participation.
Moving on to Section 2, decoding the Union Jack.
But let's look specifically at the iconography utilized by the Rangers supporters. To them, the Union Jack operates as what semioticians call an anchor. So the crucial point is that it signifies a deep heritage, a strong constitutional loyalty, and a specific historical narrative within the United Kingdom. It literally grounds the club's identity right into the broader political and historical reality of the British state. It ties the local directly to the national.
If we break this symbol down structurally, the Union Jack is actually a composite sign. It's formed by the superimposition of three distinct crosses: the cross of St. George, the cross of St. Andrew, and the cross of St. Patrick. This structural layering was specifically designed to symbolize unity.
But in the context of the stadium, this composite sign provides a clear, totally unambiguous signal of allegiance. It visually asserts that the space occupied by the club is a territory of Britishness. This effectively neutralizes any ambiguity in the environment. You aren't just in Glasgow anymore. You're standing in a space that is proudly asserting itself as part of a larger, systemic whole.
All right, Section 3, decoding the Irish Tricolour.
Moving impartially across the aisle, let's apply the exact same lens to the Celtic supporters. For them, the Irish Tricolour functions semiotically as a countersign. It serves as a distinct alternative to the British narrative we just analyzed. Instead, it represents a narrative of history, of migration, and the deep diaspora experience, acting as a profound visual marker of ancestral identity for those holding it.
Structurally, the tricolour's design, green for the Gaelic or Catholic tradition, orange for the Protestant tradition, united by the white of peace, was originally meant to symbolize synthesis and integration. However, in the context of the Old Firm Stadium, its semiotic value shifts pretty dramatically. It transforms into a defiant celebration of a specific cultural history that its bearers feel was historically marginalized.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core difference between our two subjects. The Union Jack functions primarily as a boundary marker. It's about territorial authority and a state-based narrative. The Irish Tricolour, conversely, functions as a narrative marker. It is a sign of origins, signaling the history of the Irish and Scotland and a deep cultural connection. They are fundamentally different types of semiotic tools.
Which brings us to Section 4, the semiotic collision.
We've analyzed the two symbols in isolation, but what actually happens when they are forced to occupy the exact same physical space? Well, it creates a massive collision. In linguistic theory, symbols actually derive their meaning from difference. This means that a flag's power in this specific environment comes precisely from the fact that it is not the other flag. The sheer, intense contrast is what charges these icons with such incredible, undeniable energy.
This leads to a fascinating phenomenon called total saturation. The sheer mass of thousands of flags creates a genuine visual pressure in the stadium. The semiotic goal of the fans here is literally the erasure of the other side's signal. By drowning the space in one specific set of symbols, they're attempting to redefine the reality of the stadium, creating their own temporary reality where only their signifier holds power.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that the physical action, the subtext of how the fabric is actually deployed, completely changes its semiotic weight. A flag held high and steady represents stasis and authority. But that exact same flag, waved aggressively and frantically, suddenly represents movement and fierce contestation. The human holding the fabric dictates its ultimate meaning.
And finally, Section 5, the unspoken language. Let's summarize our findings here and look at the broader implications. The real intensity and arguably the tragedy of this rivalry lies in the fact that these symbols have become perfectly fixed ideological anchors. They are absolutely no longer open to casual interpretation. You simply cannot view either flag in this space without feeling the massive, overwhelming baggage of history bearing down on it.
Ultimately, the stadium itself acts as a massive semiotic amplifier. Outside the gates, just walking down the street, these might just be pieces of cloth. But inside that stadium, they become absolute battle standards. The environment amplifies their meaning to such an extreme degree that it forces every single participant to take a side.
Let's just pause for a second and let the weight of this quote from our source sink in. There is no such thing as an unmarked space in an Old Firm match. None. Every single seat, every brick wall, and every fan's shirt is a potential site for the display of these competing signs. It's absolute, total visual warfare.
By decoding this iconography, we don't just learn about two football clubs. We learn about the incredibly deep, structural layers of human identity that this rivalry is actually built to protect. For those 90 minutes, these flags are the literal vocabulary the fans use to define their very existence and their history in a deeply divided city.
I want to leave you with this provocative final thought directly from our source material. Do you believe that the dominance of these nationalistic icons in the stadium helps preserve a necessary cultural identity for the fan bases? Or does their fixed semiotic status prevent the rivalry from ever evolving into a more modern, less polarized form of sporting expression? It's a fascinating question about the real power of symbols. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I hope this objective deep dive completely changes how you view flags and visual identity. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.